to the next item, item 5. This is the report on standardisation of the Council's waste collection arrangements, including revisions to trade waste and to green waste collections. So, Alistair Critchlow, please, you're going to present this to members.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of the report is to outline proposals to standardise the collection of residual waste from households and residual waste from premises that fall under the Welsh Government's workplace recycling regulations. A further adjustment to the collection of green waste during winter months is also proposed, as well as an ongoing commitment to keep the Council's waste management strategy under review. Specifically, the report seeks Cabinet approval to firstly standardise the collection method of residual household waste in the Cynon and Taff areas, from wheelie bin collections to curbside collections of a maximum of 3 black bags only. Secondly, to amend the frequency of refuse collections from premises that fall under the workplace recycling regulations to a 3-weekly collection cycle. And thirdly, to adjust the current winter green waste collection booking service to make the service more efficient. With regards to the standardisation of domestic refuse collections, there are distinct benefits to the presentation and collection of bag-only waste at the curbside, including an increase in recycling rates to meet the Welsh Government's target of 70% and avoid substantial fines. A reduction in obstructions in between collections with clearer footways for people with visual impairment and physical disability. A general improvement in the appearance of our streets and communities post-collections. A faster, more resilient collection service making more efficient use of our waste collection fleet, and a reduction in residual waste and carbon emissions. Moreover, analysis of service efficiency and recycling rates across the county borough shows a disparity between those areas with wheelie bin collections and those where black bags are collected directly from the curbside, with recycling performance and participation in the Rhondda being significantly higher than in other areas. Full-year recycling data for 23-24 shows that the Council's recycling rate has improved to 67.2%, up from 64.9% in 22-23. However, with less than a year to go to reach the Welsh Government's target, recycling performance requires further improvement beyond the measures taken during the last 12 months. The service also understands that many residents may want to continue to use their wheelie bins for storing their residual waste. Therefore, it is proposed that Cynon and Taff residents can retain their bins for the storage of their bags if they wish, but they are only to present their bags for collection. And if this proposal is supported, it is advised to implement it from September the 30th this year. Turning to amending trade refuse collections to a 3-weekly collection cycle, the Council's trade waste customer base is relatively small in size, with approximately 800 customers, including businesses, schools, leisure centres and social care establishments. Further, as the Cabinet would be aware, the recent introduction of the Welsh Government's workplace recycling regulations has led to the need for changes to be made as to how trade recycling is presented and collected, as separate recycling streams are now required. And, in order to more fully comply with this new legislation, there is now a need to review the way in which the Council collects trade refuse, because it is anticipated that the requirement under the new regulations to source segregate will improve recycling and reduce residual tonnages. Consequently, it is proposed to move trade waste refuse collections to a 3-weekly collection cycle, noting that recycling will still be collected weekly. Not only will this bring the trade waste refuse collections in line with the domestic collection cycle, but it will also allow the service to repurpose 2 vehicles within its existing fleet, preventing further spending, whilst at the same time achieving statutory compliance. It should also be noted that this service alteration would see weekly charges be replaced by monthly ones, which can be seen in section 10 of the report. If this proposal is supported, it is advised to implement it from November the 4th this year. Looking at the prospect of adjusting the current winter green waste collection booking service, in November last year, the Council introduced a booking system for the weekly collection of green waste during the winter months. As a result of the reliable management information the booking system has now provided, it is possible to tell with much greater certainty how often residents are placing out bags during the winter months and where they are. Consequently, coupled with data about tonnages, it is now proposed to adjust the effectiveness of the booking system to provide an improved and more efficient service. Under the terms of the proposal laid out in section 6 of the report, residents will still be able to book collections and will subsequently be advised of a collection date, which which will always be within a 2-week period, in line with previous winter green collection frequencies. This will enable collections to be scheduled more efficiently and to help reduce our carbon footprint. In addition, the usual regular weekly green waste collection service, which runs from March through October each year, will be extended into November, as recent data has highlighted that residents still present a significant amount of green waste even into November. And if this proposal is also supported, it is advised that this too be implemented from November the 4th this year. In conclusion, the proposals outlined in this report will help to increase the overall efficiency of the service in line with Welsh Government's and the Council's priorities for the benefit of our residents. If the proposals are taken forward, they will be communicated ahead of time with bespoke, targeted public information campaigns planned as required. Also, any agreed programmes of work to introduce the aforementioned proposals will be incorporated into the Council's medium-term financial planning arrangements to ensure resource requirements are reviewed, challenged and planned for. Finally, I would wish to confirm that recycling rates will continue to be monitored and evaluated to inform the ongoing strategy for waste and recycling collections, and I would refer members to the recommendations laid out in section 2 of the report.
Okay, thank you. And go to Councillor Crimmings first, please, as Cabinet Member.
Can I thank the officers for providing Cabinet with a detailed report which contains a clear rationale for presenting these proposals. I'd like to note here as well that as Cabinet we have considered the correspondence we've received to date and the petitions which have formally been shared with us as Cabinet members. If agreed today, the only change for residents will be that they will need to place their black bags at the collection point on their normal collection day, as opposed to their wheelie bins. We won't be taking the bins away. Like any proposal involving change, we recognise residents have concerns, and like other councillors, I've received communication that needs to be addressed in advance of any Cabinet decision being made. During my time as councillor, I've received representation from residents raising concerns about the impact that wheelie bins, especially the large ones, have on our streets. My ward has some narrow footpaths and these cause obstructions and hazards. We've always been aware of the inconsistency of service across the 3 former authority areas and our 3 valleys. When considering the data in terms of service operation and recycling participation, it could be clearly evidenced that there is a direct connection between the better recycling performance we see in the Rhondda and the waste collection arrangements operated there. Our officers are continually charged with identifying how to operate services more effectively, and the standardisation of collection arrangements would not only deliver financial savings, but will also support a quicker transition to a greener fleet and reduce the capital cost of future fleet renewal. Since this report was published, many questions and concerns have been raised, and it's clear that many residents in Cynon and Taff value the current arrangement. However, it is important to stress that if these proposals are agreed by Cabinet, as stated earlier, we would not be taking wheelie bins away or removing a service from residents. What officers are proposing is a change in how waste is presented for collection at the curbside every 3 weeks. Several residents who I've spoken to regarding their concerns already have been reassured when I've explained what the proposals involve. One issue that has been raised on a number of occasions is that of assisted waste collection service to support residents who have physical difficulties in carrying their recycling or waste to their bin collection point. My point to officers and a question is, can I ask officers to confirm that this provision would continue for residents who require support under these proposals? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Critchlow, would you to reply?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, Councillor. If a resident currently has an assisted waste collection, they will continue to receive one.
Thank you, Alistair. That's the end of my part here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. There are a couple of distinct areas to this, and obviously, as Councillor Crimmings alluded to, there has been concerns raised or questions raised as well. I've had a number of emails. Some I've been able to answer and reassure people. Certainly, I've had a couple of emails where people think I'll be taking the bins away altogether, and they would have to put black bags out for the full 3-week period. That's not the case. Obviously, what is being suggested is the black bags are just taken out on bin day and placed out outside. I have a ward as well, which large parts of it are terrace streets, and from time to time we do get complaints, and from time to time I know enforcement have had to take action where members of the public have complained, and we have a statutory duty in terms of removing obstructions from the highway. And if we didn't do that, we potentially would face issues with the Ombudsman. But I know that on times we try to work with residents around that. But however, I'm also aware from a recent conversation where officers have had to remove bins from properties where they've been left out continually. Separate to that, I want to ask around the efficiencies. Could references about the efficiencies in terms of the financial efficiencies of this? Because that's a question that I've had from a number of people, is more information on what is the benefit of doing this. So we've heard about obviously the recycling element. It's clear in the report around the suggestion about bins or footways and just putting black bags out. So the only obstruction in effect is on the day of collection. But could somebody answer a little bit more around the efficiencies of the service and how that looks and what does it mean for residents? I don't know if yourself or the Finance Director could pick this up, please.
Thank you, Leader. There'll be a combination of annual revenue savings from a combination of processing costs and reduced collection costs, coupled with the avoidance of fines. The modelled financial implications would amount to cost reductions and cost avoidance at just under £1 million.
And when you say the cost avoidance, that's linked to the, for every 1% that we fail to hit recycling, the £130,000 fine that the local authority will receive from this year?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Oh, okay. The assisted collections, I've had a number of emails on that. So Councillor Crimmings has raised that point. We talked about the green in the fleet. So presumably with the bin lifts not fitted to all the vehicles, I know that the bin lift element is quite a chunky piece of kit on the back of the lorries, and allows, I understand that point from previous questions I've raised. In terms of the recycling of food waste in particular, can you just elaborate a little bit more on the rate in the Rhondda compared then to the Cynon and Taff in terms of the percentage and the tonnage? Can you give us some more data on that, and where do you get that figures from?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, our data with regards to waste and recycling tonnages between a wheelie bin area, so obviously Cynon and Taff as opposed to a non-wheelie bin area, indicates the non-wheelie bin areas have around 30% more recycling tonnage is collected than a wheelie bin area. So the overall recycling rate difference is about 20%. And that's taken directly from the data that we hold with our tablets and our tipping tickets when we tip the waste off.
And I presume then, if a large proportion of that is food waste out to black bags, I presume it's because people want to avoid black bags being targeted by pests such as dogs, birds, and various other things. But so it is primarily the food waste in the Rhondda that is less in black bags, considerably less in black bags than in those other areas. Is that what you're saying? The data does confirm?
Yes, exactly. Yes, there is a much higher tonnage of food waste recycled in the Rhondda compared to Cynon and Taff. That's correct.
There are other points I want to raise, but I'll raise them later on. But there's a number of speakers who've indicated on this, so I'll go to Karen Morgan first, please. Would you like to join us online? So you've got 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm confident, as you've said, that Cabinet members are aware of the significant opposition to the proposal to change to black bag collection in the Cynon and Taff areas, whether that be from the emails you've received, conversations on the streets, or the petitions presented, or the outcry on social media. This proposal is a material change. The move from wheelie bins to bags is a material change for residents and for our collection crews. The change to 3 weekly collection for commercial waste is a material change. The change to green waste collection in the winter is a material change. Unfortunately, the report is quite vague in part regarding that data. It may have been helpful to evidence many of the assumptions made. For example, what are the figures for the Cynon and Taff cost savings? It's been said that the Rhondda recycles 30% more. What are the rates elsewhere? Should we be making the assumption that this change will result in achieving that 70% target in less than 12 months? How many complaints does the council receive about bins left across the street? And are those bins left by residents or by the collection crews? How many complaints does the council receive about waste that has been left on streets from ripped recycling bags? The answers given to the frequently asked questions and the impact assessments are weighted to justify the proposal, but it is notable just how many of those answers refer to additional bag allowances and assisted collections. Does the council have the resources to meet the anticipated increase in assisted collections? This increase, together with additional bag allowances, will surely cancel out any potential savings or efficiency and also potentially increase the use of plastic bags. Many residents have
Councillor Morgan, we can't hear you. You've cut out. Sorry, the sound. Can you just check that?
Is that better?
Yes, we can hear you again now. Thank you.
Sorry. The council's stance on bags being ripped open is that this will not be a problem if the food is recycled and not placed in black bags. What about other waste, such as pet waste, sanitary waste, which does attract vermin? The report also refers to using smaller vehicles for narrow streets. It's my understanding this is already the practice for smaller streets or rural areas, or residents and collection crews take bins to a central collection point. Regarding communal collection points, how will the 3 bags per household be policed? I'm confident the street care enforcement team should have evidence that communal collection points are already one of the most difficult areas to take enforcement action for contaminated recycling. Will excess bags be left on the street as contaminated bags are now? The perceived benefits of the material change also mentions that removing wheelie bins will result in less obstructions on the pavements. Whilst this is acknowledged, many residents place their wheelie bins out the evening before collection for various reasons, either because they rely on assistance from relatives or neighbours, they might be shift workers, or because of the uncertainty of collection times. It is common practice. Wheelie bins are a visible, sturdy obstruction. Black bags, on the other hand, could easily be tripped over, especially in areas with reduced or no street lighting. The proposal states wheelie bins can be kept to be used for storage. Residents will simply have to remove the black bags to place on pavements. It's a long way down to remove a bag from the bottom of the bin. Again, a potential increase in the request for assisted collection. There has been a reliance in the report on using the Rhondda Valley to justify the proposal, but our valleys are different. This is why historically the different approach was used. If Cynon and Taff have lowered recycling rates, then why not take the time to investigate why this is the case and involve residents in finding solutions to meet the problems, rather than taking a one-size-fits-all approach. We are all committed to waste reduction and increased recycling, but there is evidence out there that it is possible to improve waste management without replacing bins with bags. We need to identify the root causes, address those, whether that be by improved public education or investing in innovative recycling facilities. This would surely be more effective and widely supported than simply moving to black bags on pavements. The golden rule of successfully implementing change is to consult and involve those who are affected by change. Studies show public satisfaction and compliance are higher when residents feel included in policy decisions. Paragraph 9 on page 40 of the report is titled Consultation Involvement. It states that the proposals, if taken forward, would be communicated to residents and businesses ahead of implementation. This is not consultation or involvement. This is telling residents it's changing and you have no say in it. To conclude, all parts of this proposal constitute material changes. It should be clear from the feedback already received from the public in just a week that there are significant concerns. Those concerns should be heard, and this proposal should be subject to full public consultation. Diolch.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Morgan. I go to Councillor Cathy Lisles next, please, who again is online and is asked to speak on this item.
Thank you, Chair. As a recycling champion, I'm aware that over 80% of household waste is currently recyclable, and therefore very little waste is finding its way into our green bin, so much so that even with 3 adults in the house currently, gets put out for collection about once in every 9 weeks, if that. However, both myself and Councillor David Evans have received strong negative responses from residents to this proposal. The primary areas for concern have been around worries about increased fly tipping of domestic waste, bags being ripped open by birds, cats, rats and the like, with waste constantly being strewn across the street. Residents are also concerned about bags bursting or the bags blowing like tumbleweed up and down the street in stormy weather, or how, if being on the short side, they might be able to reach the bottom bag in the bin to hoik it out again ready for collection. Finally, they have raised concerns about the welfare of both residents who may struggle to put bags out and our refuse collectors lifting heavy bags. Residents see this proposal as a backward step. They do not understand why their council would wish to add more plastic into the waste collection. They do not understand how it is processed, that it is incinerated rather than going to landfill, and that what is left at the end of the process can be recycled and is included in our recycling percentage. All of these points are capable of being explained, and there are solutions, such as we have mentioned, assisted collections and additional bag allowances. However, there is also concern about the way that this proposal has been introduced, that it is more a case of being done to than done with, and it has generated a lot of negative headlines. We all know what sort of problems those can cause. With just the present report to Cabinet to go on, it was only natural that residents would raise queries, and the FAQ list for members was only partially successful in addressing these. I spent some time over the past few days speaking with the Director and Acting Director of Street Care Services. I would like to thank them for their time and detailed explanations, which has enabled the list of points I raised to be clarified. I have then tried to share these responses with residents either in person or via Facebook to address their concerns. I am also pleased to know that this proposal is likely to save money, even though at present we do not have a very firm idea on how much that might be. However, one point remains. There has been a lack of consultation with both residents and businesses in relation to this proposal, because it is believed that given the nature of the change, none is required. Therefore, there has been a limit to the ways in which residents and businesses can make their feelings known about the proposal, and this has an impact on how residents feel about it. This council is currently running a consultation under its Let's Talk banner about RCT's engagement and involvement strategy. This includes the aim, and I quote, of developing clear opportunities for residents to have their say and have an influence on decisions made by the council. This proposal is an example of a decision where residents had no say. Therefore, I would like to suggest that this council considers how it discusses with its residents any such similar proposals where residents do not get a vote or access to a consultation, and also reviews its communication strategy in relation to this proposal to include an update of the A to Z search facility on the website and an update to the information, videos and graphics on how RCT processes all of its waste. I'd also like to suggest an education session for elected county councillors along with visits to the processing facilities so that we will all be in a better position to assist our residents. Thank you.
Thanks. Will Jones, who's actually in the chamber. Sorry, Councillor Jones.
I'm here. Thanks, Leader. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to address Cabinet. I wanted to speak very much from a Rhondda member perspective, and indeed, as what is now an ancient resident from Treherbert, who has always presented my waste for collection at the curbside. On that as well, it's nice to see that RCT, the Rhondda, is leading in food recycling following that. I totally acknowledge the concerns being raised. I can reassure you that these concerns do not materialise in practice. Without question, the black bags we use in the Rhondda support and force better recycling. It improves the safety of pedestrians, especially wheelchairs, prams, and of course the visually impaired. I also note that this standardisation does deliver important savings. And here we have an option which saves money, yet does not deliver a vastly reduced level of service. That's in my opinion. On behalf of my I would imagine that if other options were presented with savings of similar sums, this could result in an additional loss of services or provision being avoided. Finally, on behalf of our residents in Treherbert, if a standardisation of collection arrangements across RCT, and we are one county borough, can protect other frontline services, the approach being proposed is the right one for us all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jones. I got one more speaker, Councillor Sarah Jane Davies, please. I think Sarah's on line to join us. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, thank you, members, for allowing me to speak today, and thank you for the clarification that we've received so far. I consider it a really privileged position to be able to represent Llantryston and Tarver Green, and based on the volume of direct contact that I've had on this issue, I'd be doing a disservice by not trying to raise these concerns with you. I would also like to thank the Street Care team who spent a great deal of time with me this week, going over some of the concerns. So basically what I've got and what I want to do is acknowledge those concerns, whilst I know some of them have been addressed in the FAQs. When broken down in themes, the primary concerns for my residents in my area are the attracting of wildlife and vermin into the residential areas, increasing the real risk of public health and environmental impact, and the increased risk of rubbish spreading from broken bags into the residential areas, causing a poor impact on the environment and the well-being of those residents. So basically, what we've done is we've minimised many of the concerns, but these are the primary concerns that remain outstanding for my residents for Llantryston and Tarver Green. Thank you very much, Chair. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, thanks. Is there some of those particular points officers wish to comment on? I know some were repetitive, but they are obviously valid points that people are raising. So should I go to Steve Williams first as the director, please?
Yes, thanks, Leader. Yes, lots of valid points. I thank members for your questions. I'd like to relay some of those fears as a resident of the Rhondda as well as the director. The system does work very well, as Councillor Jones said. There is no evidential increase in vermin, rats, seagulls, which seems to be a point that comes up regular. As we've stated throughout the report and the FAQs, residents do keep their bins, so your bins can be stored up until the time they are placed. We offer a weekly food recycling, as most of you are aware. So the biodegradable material should be minimal going into your black bags, which is probably one of the aspects that actually creates vermin and different things to go into bags. That's the same with nappies, AHP. That's also weekly, and also green waste. There's been some discussions around material change. Again, the bins, your bins are going to be kept, your allowances are going to be the same, your bag allowances are going to be the same, etc., etc. There was a couple of valid points raised by Councillor Lisles around the way black waste is treated, so it wouldn't be causing any additional materials into the environment. We are in a changing environment, the legislation is changing, and things that might have worked years ago need to be looked at, because part of new legislation requires us to be effective and efficient, and that means we have to look at different ways of doing things. But I think the strong point that needs to come across here is that there is no service change apart from the bags have to be placed out. The rest of your bins will be retained, your weekly services will be retained, your bag allowances will be retained as well. But as I said, as a service, we have to be efficient and effective. Also, as well as Director of Highways, we have a duty to ensure that the streets are as clear as possible. And whilst we can't guarantee that, I still have to look at the best way we can at least manage that risk to the optimum ability. So that's a couple of questions answered there, Leader. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other points that officers want to raise? Can I go to Alistair Critchlow, please? You indicated.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just one point about the assisted collection. Just want to reassure members that assisted collection requests that come in will continue to be addressed on an individual basis, and we're confident that we have the resources to action that. Thank you.
Okay, go to Councillor Caple next, then you've indicated, please.
Thank you, Leader. As a lifelong Rhondda resident, I can say with confidence that some of the concerns expressed have never been experienced by myself, having operated with this arrangement for many years, back to the days when the former Rhondda Borough Council introduced the scheme pre-1996. I say this to reassure everyone that when black bags are presented for collection, the arrangement works well. This arrangement also works well despite the challenging topography and narrow terraced streets of the Rhondda. Furthermore, this arrangement ensures that the footway is immediately cleaned after the refuse collectors have attended. There is no doubt that this scheme is the key reason why Rhondda residents lead the way in recycling participation. This is not as significant a change as being suggested by some members, as this approach already operates to good effect in a third of our county borough, i.e. the Rhondda. Across Cynon and Taff, over the years, I understand that there are hundreds of people who have moved towards just putting bags out, as they recognise that wheeling bins through the house is not a preferred option. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Norris.
Thanks, Leader. I'd like to echo Councillor Caple's comments, please. I understand residents' concerns when any changes are proposed, but I must say that living in the Rhondda, I can reassure Cabinet members and the other speakers today that we simply don't experience the concerns with our waste collection that have been expressed. Providing each resident takes responsibility, recycles, and uses schemes such as the food, nappy and green waste collections, the concerns being expressed just won't happen. Especially black bags attracting vermin, as Mr Williams has said, it doesn't happen in the Rhondda. Very rare bags are ripped up by animals, and it's usually because people are using either the food, nappy or recycling available to them on a weekly basis. All this proposal is really doing, Councillor Crimmings and Councillor Jones as well mentioned, is to standardise our services. And this will improve recycling rates, deliver vital efficiency savings, while also getting unsightly bins off our street. So I see no problem with the changes.
Okay. Can I just ask a question at this point? And it's been mentioned by some members, in particular around the communication. So, can you just outline a little bit more around communication in terms of what is planned by the service to make sure people are informed, and also go forward about how we review this? So, if the Cabinet does take this forward, how do we know that what we suggested from officers is going to work, actually does, and there isn't difficulties? So can you give us a bit more information on that side, please?
Yes, I can confirm that all households in the Cynon and Taff areas will be written to before implementing any approved proposal. And in with letter, there will also be an easy-to-follow guide explaining what the arrangements are and the waste collection service offered by the Council. In terms of providing reassurance about the ongoing monitoring of the proposal and things, senior leadership team and Cabinet members will be regularly updated with progress of any new proposals.
Can I just ask on that, and in terms of the collection, do we collate all the data on a weekly basis in terms of the stats service?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thanks. Can I, sorry, do you indicate you want to come in?
Yes, please. Thanks, Leader. Just speaking with my communications hat on, I think hopefully provide some reassurance to members. We have got, working with the Waste Service previously, the communications team has a long track record of delivering effective comms campaigns that support that change that we need from residents. When, for example, we made the 3 weekly collections, we look to deploy all the mechanisms we have that are at disposal. A heavy focus upon social media as part of that to be able to respond and address some of the concerns that have rightly been raised by residents. But hopefully that track record that we've had to date should provide some reassurance that we can deliver that again to support a campaign for this if members were minded to support the proposal.
Okay, thanks. Other members want to speak inside? Councillor Lewis?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Much like yourself, of course, as well as being a member of the Cabinet, of course, do represent a ward within the Cynon Valley, which would be subject to the proposed changes. I must say I have found it useful in recent days to speak with colleagues from the Rhondda in terms of the current arrangements that have been in place in the Rhondda for many decades, and I've been able to raise many of the concerns that residents have raised with me, just to get an idea, I suppose, logistically how it works in the Rhondda. And I must say I have found that quite reassuring, that obviously there's been a set process in the Rhondda for many decades. I think it's worth pointing out as well, in terms of the rationale being proposed by officers, we've heard that, of course, it will secure savings, which is very important, of course, as we move forward, particularly in strained budget times, which we found ourselves in for the past decade or so. But I think it's worth also recognising that in terms of recycling, the Council is a strong performer. And indeed, as a nation, we're a strong performer as well. We're regularly in the top 3 in the whole of the world. And I think that shows the important relationship between the authority, which I think offers a very generous and efficient service in terms of waste collection, but perhaps most importantly, the residents who engage with that system and help us to achieve the targets that we do. But I think it's becoming increasingly clear that the direction of travel and responsibilities placed on the local authority, particularly from Welsh Government, means that we have to do more. The target that we already achieve is high, but of course we need to go higher. So I understand the rationale from that perspective. I do have 2 questions, Chair, if I may present to officers, and this has come up in our deliberations today, but also from residents within my ward as well. The first one's already been touched upon, which is querying the nature of consultation and as to why officers feel a consultation isn't necessary on the proposed changes. And the second question I have, it relates to missed waste collections. They do occur from time to time, and of course, as elected members, we do report them. Perhaps there can be issues sometimes with the larger trucks accessing streets, whether it be problem parking or obstructions or issues. So that the second question I have is, do officers see a benefit in the changes that are being proposed in relation to missed collections? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Can I ask if one of the officers will take those questions? I'll go to Steve Williams first and I'll come to Alistair.
I'll take the first one. As regards to the change, Councillor Lewis, we've got data that informed our change. And as like I said last time, you know, as regards to it being a material change, I think that's a debatable point, because allowances are getting kept, bins are getting kept, and the same collections are going to be carried out. So I think that's the rationale behind the change and the consultation.
If I can just come in, Councillor Lewis, then on the missed collections. You raise a good point there. We hold an awful lot of data in our service, and a recent analysis of that data shows that the overall miscollection rate is a small fraction of 1% of all our collections, bearing in mind we collect from 116,000 properties every single week. Moreover, the majority of those miscollections you alluded to in your question there are to do with the difficulty of manoeuvring large bins in between parked vehicles, which is very difficult. So I would envisage then, by collecting black bags only, there'd be fewer miscollections, which are already very few anyway.
Can I just ask for the question, partly on what was touched on earlier about different vehicles? I know I've had a conversation about this around being able to use smaller vehicles in some streets, but it's smaller vehicles which are not refuse vehicles. For example, if I know as council leader I get correspondence from residents when there's miscollections. The way, if I got the process right as it works now, we send the refuse vehicle back at the end of the day if they've had a miscollection. If they still can't get in there, it maybe they'll try the following day, etc. But the reason why we can't collect with smaller vehicles, as in pickups or 7.5-ton trucks, etc., is because the rubbish is in the bins, and for manual handling issues, we can't obviously have the staff lifting bins onto those trucks. So from the conversation I had, if I'm right, we would be able to use smaller vehicles to be able to go into those streets if there is a missed collection because of parked cars, and obviously we can't get the cars moved. It would allow then the operatives to be able to put the black bags on the back of the pickup. That's my understanding from the conversations and emails we've had.
Yes, we can use alternative vehicles then to pick up those miscollections, so it'll give us a better opportunity then.
So can I just ask, in terms of that side as well, will we be able to monitor that in terms of miscollections? Will we be able to improve the service in ensuring basically bags are collected as quickly and as efficiently as possible? Is there a way of us monitoring that to see that if this is brought in, that we do see a better service for those areas which sometimes do get a missed collection?
As Alistair pointed out, we've got lots of data on the amount of miscollections, which is minimal, but when we can utilise that data to show the improvement in the service going forward.
Okay, Councillor Harris, go you light on?
Thank you, Leader. Firstly, I'd like to fully endorse what's already been said by my fellow Cabinet members today. The arrangements put forward in this proposal already reflect the current waste collection service that operates at present very effectively within my ward and indeed throughout the whole of the Rhondda. Therefore, I would have no reason to see why this service could not also have a valuable, successful function across Rhondda, Cllr and Taff, the whole 3 boroughs as such. To this end, I would be happy to support the recommendations set in the report, and I would urge other Cabinet members to join me in supporting this proposal. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, I can't see anybody else has got lights on at present. Sorry, Councillor Jones, you allow you to come in very briefly then. Sorry, right.
Extremely briefly. Yeah, with regards to black bags and being ripped by animals or whatever, so we get very, very few of that happening. And that is as a result of irresponsible residents putting out the bags 2, 3, 4 days in advance. And that's very few. So it's not the fact that they're black bags, it's the fact that people, the irresponsible residents, who are a few, put them out 3 or 4 days before. And I must say the enforcement team on street care, if that's the case, they're up, they clean it straight away. So I just wanted to bring that up that as another cause of the so-called animals. Thank you.
Okay, so you got your light on, Steve. Do you want to come back in?
Thanks, Leader. Thank Councillor Jones. Just to reiterate as well, and just for members' awareness, we're currently in the top quartile of the Keep Wales Tidy for assessment of streets, which is independent. So we're in the top quartile of that as well. So it shows how clean our streets are generally. So thank you.
I think that's why if we see this proposal going forward today, that's why I think the monitoring of this is going to be so critical, because I think the key message is residents want to see their streets kept clean. So it's understanding and make sure that the policy change doesn't end up adversely impacting on communities. I can't see any other lights on indicating they wish to speak, so I'm going to go back to Councillor Crimmings as the lead member, unless officers or members want to come in with anything further. No, Councillor Crimmings.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Well, following a lengthy and informative discussion, I would like to thank officers who I believe have addressed the concerns raised by members and from members on behalf of their residents as well, which it is important. That we have the data, their experience on the proposals already in place in the Rhondda, and also I have to say by residents in Cynon and Taff who already put one black bag out alongside their standard bin. So thank you for the officers. I'm content to move recommendations set out in 2.1 of the report on the basis that assurances can be given. The council officers will continue to, which you've alluded to, provide the assisted collections, additional bag allowance for those who require it and who contact the officers, that environmental implications and the data are carefully monitored and managed by council officers with regular updates to members, and myself as a cabinet member, obviously this is something alongside you we'll be looking at to monitor. That the council ensures there are clear communication messages with residents in the lead up to any changes. Again, that's been addressed today with letters and communication. And obviously we probably do social media and the works for there. And also that the council listens to any concerns raised during the implementation to mitigate any issues that arise. And obviously, as the cabinet member, I'm sure councillors, if they have got any concerns raised by their residents, will be in touch, and I can personally take them up on that. And then 2.2, that officers keep the council's waste management strategy under review. So I so move 2.1, 1, 2, 3.
Apologies, my mic went off. So can I just ask, there's no other speakers on this item from what I can see, so the recommendations have been moved. Can I ask if there is a seconder? It's been seconded. Okay, in that case, can I ask for a show of hands if members are in agreement with the recommendations or not? Okay, that is clearly carried at this point. Okay, thank you.